Let's also talk today that the Prime Minister armed up against some of the more ridiculous claims that China had been making of recent times, including that Chinese students shouldn't come to Australia because, of course, we're all racist. Here's the Prime Minister in Canberra.
We're accused of being racist towards Chinese students.
Well, that's rubbish.
That's not Australian.
Well, it's rubbish. It's a ridiculous assertion, and it's rejected. I mean, that's not a statement that's been made by the Chinese leadership.
No, well, that's made by their mouthpiece, the Global Times.
There's lots of others who issue commentary.
Amanda, I was glad to see the Prime Minister push back, but it's no variation of where he's been the whole way through this, which is we're not going to sell out Australian values no matter what the potential threat might be here. But it's pretty obvious that China's not going to give up. They're not going to give up anytime soon. Literally every single day in the Global Times, the propaganda unit, there's a little message which is dutifully reported by the Australian media every single day. And this nonsense that Australia isn't safe because of racism, come on.
Look, it is nonsense, and I think it says something really significant about the dirty tricks that the Communist Party of China is prepared to use to get a geopolitical advantage. They'll steal IP to get ahead. They'll play games with confected concerns about quarantine or labelling laws to get an advantage in a strategic sense. They will spread misinformation about the safety of being in Australia to people who might want to study here, to try and get some leverage over us, to try and economically coerce us. What I'm really proud of, though, is not just that our PM has, in his characteristic way, said, no, we're going to live by the values that we believe in. We're going to behave as a free trading nation. We're going to behave honestly, but we're only ever going to act in the interests of Australia and Australians. And the second thing that's wonderful is to see Chinese Australians outspokenly saying how much they love this country, how much they feel safe in this country, and making sure that message gets through back in China so that we can try and get our education sector back on track.
The Prime Minister was also asked today about the Belt and Road Initiative, the dirty deal that Chairman Daniel Andrews did with China. Here in part is what he said about that offensive deal.
It is not a program the Australian government has signed up to. It is not Australian government's foreign policy. And all states and territories should not be doing things that act inconsistently with the federal policy.
So is it too late? Can Daniel Andrews get out of it?
He should, because it's inconsistent with Australia's government policy.
Robin, you've got to be pleased with that from the PM.
Yes, I am pleased with that statement from the PM, but I want to find a mechanism whereby the Prime Minister can force him to get out of it. It's not good enough just to say, it's a bad deal, get out of it. Something has to be done to stop it happening, because it is the Communist Party infiltrating this country. And when we see these reports about racism or racial taunts against Chinese people, it's a nonsense. It's not true at all. Where our argument is with the cruelty and the brutality of the communist regime of communist China. That's what we're concerned about, and their wish to be the dominant power of the world. And kid you not, that is what they're after. And we have to stand up for what we want. So we don't go down on the bended knee, we don't bow, we stand our ground. And that is so important when it comes to students coming from China. We'd love them coming from Taiwan in particular, and Hong Kong. We don't want people to come who are going to bring the communist infiltration with them. We want people who are interested in really learning. And if the universities have become so dependent on that money that's coming from communist China, they're going to have to get out their big red pencil and start cutting out the waste of degrees that aren't serving the needs of the Australian and other overseas students, and start to manage within their means and not sell out our reputation as good universities with good degrees and good teaching for the sake of money that's coming from the Communist Party.